I alluded to this in my previous video of Ethiopia not being the first Christian nation. That would also answer this person's question, but I didn't go into depth about it because it would take too long on that previous video. So please stay with me on this video and go watch the previous video that Ethiopia was not the first Christian nation. So this young lady, based on a video that I spoke about concerning Jordan Maxwell, would express that there were 16 other variations, major religions that had similarities to Christianity prior to Christianity ever coming about. She did what many Christians do and said that, okay, what happened to the other 15 prior religions? Why aren't they dominant? Pretty obvious question. Yes, it's a pretty obvious question that you would take something like this and try to make it seem like, since Christianity is a true religion, that is why it is a dominant religion. And if dominance is your verification of what is true and what is not, then you would have to say that Islam is also a true religion, since Islam is catching up to, almost equal to, the number of people that worship Allah to the number of people who worship your God in Christianity. And by the year 2050, there will be more people on the planet who worship Allah than worship your Christian God. So therefore, based on your thought process, then Islam would be the true religion, whereas Christianity would not be, since Islam would be the more dominant religion. But this person is not realizing how history works. And in order for you to understand any type of writing, you have to understand the history and the politics that surrounds the religion in order for you to actually understand the religion. So let's go into why the 16 other dominant religions are not as dominant as they used to be. It is called conquest. It is called conquering. It is called colonization. It is all of those things. One of the things that I expressed in the previous video of how Ethiopia was not the first Christian state is the fact that Ethiopia was never conquered or colonized. So therefore, Ethiopia was able to maintain their religion, their version of Christianity, due to them never being conquered. Had Ethiopia remained non-Christian, then whatever tribal religion was the more dominant one of the Axian Empire would still be dominant in Ethiopia to this day, if King Azana has not converted over to Christianity and make the Axian Empire a Christian nation in 330 CE. But as I expressed in that video, the state of Armenia, the nation of Armenia, became a Christian state prior to them by 29 years in 301, therefore making them the first Christian state. Now, let's talk about history, politics, and dominance. The reason why Christianity became a dominant religion is because when the Roman Empire became a Christian nation, a Christian empire rather, in 381 under the Emperor Theodosius, the church was established. And for the next few hundred years, as the Roman Empire began to wane, the church grew stronger and stronger and in its politics. And therefore, when the Roman Empire ended, most of the nations that were formerly of the Roman Empire remained Christian, and the center of their Christianity at that time frame was the Vatican. And the Vatican remained the center until the 1500s, when the beginning of Protestantism and Calvinism began to grow. And then kings decided to venture off into those other religions, and when they came to the Americas, they forced their Christianity on the people in the America through violence. When they went to West Africa, they forced Christianity onto those people based on the papal bulls from Pope Clement and Pope Nicholas IV, and therefore forcing those African nations to be Christian. And when Europeans began to carve up Africa, they forced Christianity onto those African countries. As I said, Ethiopia, never being conquered, maintained their version of Christianity. But you do have differences in places like India. Because India is such a vast nation to the point where it is considered a subcontinent, when the Christians came into India, they came into India after the Muslims had already come into India. And so the Ottomans had already spread Islam in India, but because of the vastness of India, wasn't able to convert the entire subcontinent into Islam, and therefore the Indus religion was still able to survive. When Christians then came in and conquered India, they weren't able to conquer the entire subcontinent. And because it's so vast and the number of people, the Indus religion still was able to survive. And with India being, I believe, the second largest populated country in the world, it had enough people who still believed in their original religion that they were able to maintain that religion. Therefore, if you, based on what you're saying by dominance, the Indus religion of worshiping Brahma is true because it has been able to survive, and it is a religion that was created at minimum 1500 years or more prior to the Christian religion, as well as a few hundred years, a few centuries before the Judea religion, the Israelite religion began. So therefore, they have been able to maintain that religion longer than any of the other modern day dominant religions. And Hinduism is still, which it should be called Indus, is still one of the most dominant religions in the world. So therefore, according to your logic, the Indus religion is a true and valid religion. Now, the reason why religions in China, religions in Japan, religions in the Southwest Asia have been able to maintain their religion is because they were not conquered in the same way that Africa and the Americas were conquered. The Aztecs and Mayans religion went out of favor because the people were utterly destroyed and conquered. So the same was many other nations throughout the Americas, and so on and so forth. Now, some of those people were able to maintain their religions and kept their religion, as we can see with many of the Native Americans. They still maintain their religion. There are still sects in Central and South America that maintain their religions, but they are small in number because of conquest. So when you understand that the only reason Christianity spread and the only reason that Christianity is dominant is because of violent conquest of other nations and the suppression of those people's religion, that is why you have Christianity in its dominance. If the Europeans had not went about colonizing the world, then Christianity would not be the most dominant religion in the world. If the Arabs have not went about colonizing and conquering North Africa and the Middle East, then and parts of India, Persia, then Islam would not be as dominant either. So these religions are only dominant because of their ability of the people technologically to conquer other nations, because they all lived in lands that could not fortify the amount of people that were living in their lands. The Americas and Africa and India and China, they didn't need to go about conquering the people because their land provided for the number of people that they were in. Plus, some of these countries are able to maintain their independence simply because of their location. China is very difficult to conquer because of the mountain ranges. Ethiopia, very difficult to conquer because of the mountain ranges. So terrain played a big part in whether or not a country was ever colonized or not. Those are some minor things. There are just a few things, not minor, just a few things that you have to understand historically if you want to truly understand why a religion is dominant and why other religions were not dominant. So your claim that it is dominant makes it true, then Hinduism and Islam should also be true. But when you look at history, you see why those religions survived. The Zoroastrians would not have been able to survive being a religion of the Levant. This is why there are only about 300,000 of those people, of Zoroastrians, who are out there. When Nigeria and other parts of West Africa were conquered, only a few who went deep enough away into the forest/jungle to survive. They were able to keep their religion, their ancestral religions, because they weren't fully dominated, because people were able to escape. And the same thing happened in South America and many other countries where the dominance was more difficult to do and people were able to escape from colonization. So I hope that answers your question. It's probably not going to make a difference to you, but that's okay. Always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.